In part 3, we're going to take a look at how we can start adding animations using GSAP. So let's go ahead and jump into our code. And what we're doing here is we're working in our app.js and app.sass file mainly. All the animations would live in app.js, and the overlay, or that black overlay that we had seen in the intro animation, that is going to be styled in our app.sass file. What we can also do is we can actually start creating a component for that intro overlay, and then to create a component that requires us to create a file in the components folder. So let's create a new file, and we can call this intro overlay, and then create a functional component, and then write intro overlay. We can use an empty fragment, or you could write the div in there. We're going to use intro-overlay, and I think I'll remove the fragment towards the end. We'll see if it works just fine. But we'll create a top section, so it's going to be top of class. And then inside the top class, we're going to have a .overlay -top. And so there's going to be 3 of these, 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to create a bottom section as well, but it's still going to be into intro overlay. So we'll do .bottom. And then we're going to create overlay -bottom. All right, so we can also copy and paste overlay bottom 3 more times. So the top is going to represent the top half, and the 3 is going to represent those 3 individual slides. And then the bottom is going to represent the bottom half, and it's going to represent the 3 individual slides that go left to right. Okay, so that's going to do it for the intro overlay. What we can do in our app.js is, why does node modules keep opening up? You need to stop. What we can do in app.js is we can import intro overlay on top of the header, the banner, and the cases. So let's get intro overlay in here. All right, and save that. And now let's do the styles for intro overlay. So you can create a component for intro overlay, but I'm just going to write it in the app.sass file here. So we're just going to write intro-overlay, and inside intro overlay we have top, and inside top we have .overlay -top. And now outside of the top we have .bottom, and inside bottom we have .overlay, and instead of top we have .overlay bottom. Okay, so let's start styling these. So for intro overlay, there isn't really going to be anything in here. It's primarily in the top and the bottom. So with top we have height 50 viewport height. And with height 50 viewport, we need to define the height using that VH variable, and then we can just paste it in there. We have a position of absolute, and then we have a width to 100%, a Z index of 8, and then for overlay top, we have a position absolute, a height of 100%, a width of 33.33 viewport width. We're going to set the background color to black, and then bottom 0, left 0, and then right, set that to 0. So for the width, I messed up here. It says WH. It is supposed to say viewport width, so VW. So if you preview this so far, what should happen is that we should have a black box on the top left section. Okay, so you can see that we have this black box up on the top left, and they're perfectly lined up with the bottom as well, so the width here. The mix blend is actually working perfectly like we want it to, so that's good. What we're going to do next is for the overlay top, work on the middle section and the right section. Then we can work on the overlay bottom. Okay, so back in our project, what we're first going to do inside the overlay top is add a media query. And so we're going to add include media. And so our huge, or the biggest media query that we kind of have with the media query with the most changes, is what I'm trying to say, is the tablet. So once we get the tablet, that's when a lot of the changes start occurring. So with the tablet, the width of that first black box is going to change to 100 viewport width. So it's no longer going to be 33% or a third. It's going to be 100 viewport width. So outside of that media query, we can then tackle the overlay top, but the second and the third one. So intro overlay, They all have the same classes, but we want to target this second one and we want to target this third one. We want to leave the top one alone. So what we could do is, let's close banner sass. What we could do while being inside the overlay top is use an ampersand, and then we could do nth dash child, and we can target the second child. And so the second child will represent the the middle one. So the middle one's going to have a left of 33.333%. And that's going to move it to the left the same width of the first one. And what we're going to do with this is, for a media query on, I'm just going to copy and paste, for when it reaches the tablet, we don't want this to exist anymore, because when we reach the tablet, we only want one black box on the top and bottom. We don't want 3. So if we save this here, what's going to happen with the nth child is that we're going to have these 2 black boxes. And so to better represent this, if I change this background color to pink, you can see that we have pink and black here. All right, but we don't want pink. Let's go ahead and remove that. What we could then do is copy this second, switch it to third, so that we're targeting the last child. We could do nth child or we could do last child. I'm just going to leave it as nth child, the third one. And we want to change this to just all 6s. So 66.666, all right? Okay, so that's good there. If we look at our project, we have the black box, black box, black box. And to better represent it, like I did before, we'll make this beige. And we'll make this one a background of pink, just to show you that there's 3 boxes that we're going to work with. So boom, boom, boom. Looks like ice cream if this was brown, all right? So we're going to work on the bottom half. It's going to be very similar to the top half. It's just we're going to target it and move it to the bottom. So I'm going to get rid of, actually, let's just leave the backgrounds for now. So with the top, I'm going to copy this one and simply paste it to the bottom. The only thing I am adding here is a bottom of 0, just so that we could move it to the bottom half. So the overlay bottom is going to be fairly similar to the overlay top as well. So let's copy overlay top and paste it in overlay bottom here. There are going to be a few minor changes, however. So with this right here, they're going to be sort of flipped. So it's going from right to left now. So with bottom, we aren't doing left anymore. We're going to just stick with bottom and right. That's because with GSAP, we are transitioning the width of the animation from left to right. And if you define left, you're going to have to do a origin and GSAP, which can get a bit complicated and a bit wonky sometimes. So this is a better solution in my opinion. So we're gonna set this to 66.6% here. Let's save this and preview. So we've gotten this left section taken care of. We're covering this left section. We're then going to do the nth child again, but for the overlay bottom. So what I'm going to actually do is just simply copy what we did above here and then just change the properties. So I'm going to copy the nth child, third one, and then also the include media. And then I'll just simply add it to the overlay bottom. Now for the first media query with the tablet for the first overlay bottom, we're going to change the right to 0 when we reach the tablet, and then we're going to set the width to 100 viewport width. And for our second child, what we're doing is we're setting the left to 33% for the top, but for the overlay bottom, since we're working on the bottom, we're gonna switch this to right 33.3%. We can get rid of the backgrounds because we get the demonstration. So it's gonna be 33.3%, and then for a tablet, we aren't using display none anymore. We're switching the width to 100 viewport width. We're adding a top of 100%, and then we're adding a right of 0. We can copy this here, and then we can paste it for our last child or our third child. We can paste this inside the tablet media query. The only thing we're changing here is the top. We're changing this to 200%. And then for the actual property of the third child, we're switching right to be 0. Which, looking at it now, it is redundant. So we're writing right 0 and then right 0 again. All right, so we can actually just get rid of this right here. So let's save this and let's preview. So our entire thing should be covered. It's just this background pink, and then the beige should go away. All right, so removing those, let's preview what we have so far. Okay, perfect. So our entire application is covered with the overlay, except this creating unique brands, which is has a higher Z index. So we've gotten the styling complete for the intro overlay. What we could then work on is the animations, which is the cool part. So with the animation, the very first thing we're going to do is simply create a GSAP timeline. And to do this, we first need to import GSAP. So we're going to import GSAP from GSAP. And then with the use effect, we can create a timeline. All right. So typical GSAP timelines will always be const TL. So const GSAP.timeline. And I am using GSAP 3 here. So there is a bit of unique chaining when it comes to GSAP 3. So what we're going to do is write TL for timeline.from. And in here, we can write the target or the DOM node. So I'm a bit conflicted on this because usually I would use a useRef hook to pull in the specific DOM node that I'm going to animate. But I think for this project, what I'm going to do, don't forget to add the quotations for GSAP. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write class names. I'm going to animate class names. And this has worked for me with React. Typically with a lot of the examples out there and other projects, you're going to use a useRef. So what I mean by this, let me show you a quick example. If I wanted to access the H2, so if I look at the project, if I want to access this element, I will have to create a useRef hook here, and I will say a variable of title, and then I'll pass title in here, and then I'll assign title to the H2, and then that will allow me to bring back or pass the prop back up here, and I can then console log title. So if I do that by example, what I can do is outside of the use effect, I'll do const title, and I'll say useRef, and I'll assign it to null just because there's nothing yet assigned to it. All right. So useRef is not defined. Let's bring in useRef, and don't follow along right now. Just listen. So you don't need to code or anything just yet. So let me remove this TL.from. We can leave this const timeline. In our banner, I am going to do title, and I'm going to pass title. And if we open up banner.js, to bring in title, and for our H2, we're going to say ref, and then we're going to say title. So this is using the useRef to allow me to access this H2 in our app.js. So now if I console.log title.current, this should allow me to console log the H2, and this should allow me to animate the H2. So if I open up the console log right here with the inspect tool and console, you can see that I'm returning this H2 now with H2 line and this other line. So if I wanted to animate this, I can with a useRef, and it actually works pretty well. So let me just demonstrate that real quick. If I'm using useRef to animate, what I can do is TL.from, I can pass in the target, which is title, and then I'll pass in the duration. We'll give it 1 second. And then I can pass in the certain options or configurations that I want. Let's just say I want the opacity to be set to 0. And I want the Y to be set to -40. And honestly, let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep it like this. So what should happen is that it should fade up and in, or sorry, fade up and yeah, in. It should fade in. So if we take a look at what happens is we break it. And why did we break it? What happened? So timeline.from, 1 opacity, okay. What's going on here? GSAP is not extensible. Title, so I didn't do title.current, so I need to do title.current. All right, so do that and save it. Okay, so I added a negative number. What am I doing? Let's do 60, 70. So now it should fade up and in. So you can see that this actually works pretty fine, and it works pretty well. The only thing here is that if I refresh a lot, you'll get that flashing, and that is really ugly, but I'll fix that, and I'll show you how to fix flashing from occurring. But yeah, you can see that this works rather well. But then it gets annoying with us needing to use ref every single time. And I don't know if this is a requirement, honestly. I'm slowly transitioning out of this so that I don't need to do this every single time. So let me get rid of this title, and I don't want to use ref because it gets annoying with React needing to do this every single time for each element. And yes, I can use current and then get the children, but it's just too much, and honestly, I just don't want to do that. So let's just remove all this. And what I want to do is I want to use a class name. So let's just do a class name instead. If I wanted to do the h2, I would simply do, where is it at? Main and then h2. So I'll do .main and then h2 like so. So if I take a look at that, I mean, it works just like if I were to use a useRef. And so that is my 2 cents on just using GSAP with the class names. I know with other, if we weren't using React, we would use class names or IDs. I don't know why I didn't do that in my other videos, but you know what? We're just gonna start doing that. So that is my quick rant on useRef and GSAP. You can just use the class names. And frankly, I have the project up on GitHub Pages, and there's no flashing, no delays, loads rather quickly, and there's no issue in terms of using a use effect and getting a class name. So honestly, this is just a much better approach in my opinion. If you think otherwise, leave a comment. Again, I would love to know if this is just a better way in my opinion. So with that rant out of the way, let's actually start animating. So what I want to do here is I want to use the class name line, specifically targeting the span. I want the duration to be 1.8 seconds. And now I want the Y set to 100. And I want the ease set to a power 4, not a 5, power 4.out. All right. And so we can add a delay here of 1 second just because we don't want the animation to happen right away. And then we're also going to add a skew of Y so that it has a sort of tilt when it comes in. A skew of Y of 7. And then we're going to add a stagger, which if you don't know what a stagger is, it pretty much allows us to run an animation first and then run the same animation again for a different element. So it has like a sort of delay for the second element. So with the line span, we're going to move the first one and then the second one with a 0.3 delay. If we take a look at our project here, you can see that it has that lovely transition coming in. Okay, so that's the first animation that we have. And one thing I want to do here is I want to rapidly flash. You can see that if I refresh the page rather quickly, sometimes it would just flash the white text. And to fix that, what we're going to do is outside of the timeline, the very first thing what we want to do, this isn't really GSAP related, but we're just going to use GSAP. We're going to say GSAP.to, and then we're going to say the body. We want a duration of 0. And then for the configurations, we want to use CSS. And we want to set the visibility to visible. And so this does nothing right now because the body is already set to visible. But if we jump in our app SAS, we can set the HTML and body to visibility of hidden. So this is hidden until all the DOM elements have loaded. And once they've loaded, we are then setting the visibility to visible. So now it prevents that flashing from happening for the white text. So you can see if I refresh several times, the white flash right here would happen, and that's not really a flash. That's just because the background is white. But every time you load the page, there's no longer of that flashing white text or elements. Cool. So I'm gonna just leave a comment here that says prevents flashing. All right, so time to pick up the pace. We're then gonna start animating our other elements. So after we've done the text, we're going to just chain a .to. And then we're getting the class name of overlay-top. And then we're giving it a duration of 1.6. And we are going to set the height, or we're going to move the height to a 0, to a height of 0. I can't talk. A height of 0. And then ease, we're going to use expo instead of power. So expo in, out. And then we're going to give it a stagger of 0.4. So let's take a look at what this is doing. So the text is fading in, And then those 3 blocks are shrinking down to a height of 0. That's awesome. So we've gotten that done. We are then going to do our next animation, and we're just going to chain a .to again. And this time we're going to work with the overlay dash bottom. Don't forget the dot for the class name. And this is going to be very similar to the top. It's just we are changing a few things. So 1.6 duration, and then the width instead of the height is going to be set to 0. The ease is going to be the same, so ease of expo in out. And then we're gonna add a delay, and we're gonna set a negative. So with the timeline, it's going to execute 1 by 1. So one goes, then the other, then the other. But in this case, I have an error here because I didn't add a comma. But in this case, I want this to run negative 0.8 seconds faster than it's supposed to wait until this is finished. So we'll add a negative 0.8. And then a stagger is going to be the same. The amount set to 0.4. All right, so let's save this. Now let's preview. So what should happen here is the text should slide in and up, then the top should shrink down, and then the overlay for the images should shrink left to right. Let's refresh this one more time just to take a look. Okay, so it actually looks really nice. I guess the last thing we can kind of add is the fact that the images should have this zoom out effect to them. What we can do is add a dot from, and we specifically want to target the case dash image, specifically the image tag. So we want to add a duration of 1.6. And then we want the scale to be from 1.4. Ease is going to be ease with the expo in out. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. We're going to give it a delay of -2 seconds. And then the stagger is going to be 0.4, same as our other staggers. And I'm just going to copy and paste that. So if we save this and preview, let me close this out right here. It's going to get in the way. All right, so it looks really nice in my opinion. One thing we need to think about is with this overlay gone, none of this is interactive in a way because it's just layered on top. So you can see I can't have this click effect, or I can't hover on the A tag. And what that means is when the animation is finished for the black boxes, I want them to go away completely. So just before this dot from for the image, I'm going to chain a .to, and this .to is just going to set a display none for our intro overlays, which is the parent div of the overlays. So I can do .intro dash overlay, and then a duration of 0 seconds, and then we'll use the CSS configuration and set the display to a display of none. Okay, so let's preview this one more time. See the text fades in really nicely or slides in, and then the shrink. Okay, and then now I can just have this hover working and everything working for me. Oh, I just clicked and I just did that again. Okay, cool. So one thing I want to check out also is the fact for responsiveness. So let me do iPhone X and then let's refresh. So since we did hide some of the boxes, we can see that it's only one box showing now, okay? I want to refresh one more time, and then I want to see if I can scroll down quick enough so that I could, yeah. So everything still follows that path, which is awesome. So that is going to do it for part 3 of the animations. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe as well for more content like this. If I missed anything or if you have any questions, again, just comment down below and I'll definitely answer them. That's going to do it for me. Have a wonderful day.